One waitress, one arrogant millionaire, and one grand piano. What began as a cruel attempt to humiliate her would soon become a moment that silenced an entire room, shattering egos and leaving everyone in awe. You won't believe how she turned the tables with nothing but her talent and a courage that refused to be broken. It was a warm Friday evening at La Fontaine, an upscale restaurant tucked in the heart of Raleigh, North Carolina. The air buzzed with the low hum of conversations, the clink of glasses, and the soft footsteps of servers weaving through tables. From the corner, faint strains of jazz drifted from a polished grand piano, wrapping the room in an atmosphere of refined indulgence. Deborah, 25, moved with practiced grace between tables. A quiet demeanor cloaked a fire in her eyes, a spark that hinted at ambitions far larger than the gleaming dining room she served. To most patrons, she was just another smiling waitress, balancing plates and pouring drinks. But inside, she carried dreams that no apron could contain. Music was her refuge. Ever since she was a child, the piano had been her sanctuary, a place where every joy, sorrow, and unspoken thought found its voice. But dreams don't pay bills, and life's responsibilities had pulled her into the world of tips, orders, and long shifts. Working at La Fontaine wasn't just a job, it was a stepping stone toward the music academy she longed to attend, a beacon that seemed almost unreachable. Few knew of Deborah's talent. Only the staff caught glimpses of her secret, as she would sometimes steal moments in the back room, fingers dancing across an old upright piano during her breaks. She was careful, quiet, humble. But that night, fate had a way of revealing hidden brilliance. The door swung open with a sharp chime, and in walked Leonard Grayson. The wealthy entrepreneur commanded the room instantly, flanked by his polished companions. Leonard exuded an air of superiority, a man accustomed to having attention bend to his will. Even seasoned staff straightened instinctively in his presence. Was notorious, sharp-tongued, a perfectionist with a taste for spectacle. And tonight, Deborah would unknowingly become his chosen entertainment. As Leonard's gaze scanned the room, it landed on Deborah. Something in the way she moved, the quiet confidence in her steps, caught his attention. A pause, a smirk. She felt the weight of his eyes but pushed it aside, refilling water glasses and clearing plates with steady hands. Deborah's life hadn't been easy. Born in a small town in South Carolina, dreams often felt as distant as stars. Her mother, a single parent, worked double shifts as a nurse to keep the family afloat. Money was scarce, but music had always filled their modest home. Her mother's worn vinyl records and an out-of-tune piano gifted by a neighbor had planted the seeds of her passion. While other children played outside, Deborah sat at the piano, teaching herself melodies she heard on the radio and venturing into classical pieces from secondhand music books. Recognition came in bits: school recitals, church performances, community events, but life demanded practicality. Scholarships failed, family responsibilities rose, and professional ambitions were shelved. The piano became more than a dream. It became her identity, a quiet rebellion against a world that tried to confine her. Moving to Raleigh years later, Deborah sought La Fontaine not just for a paycheck, but because of the grand piano in the corner. Rarely could she play, but just knowing it existed gave her solace. Music waited. And that night, it would demand to be heard. Leonard and his entourage took their seats. Deborah approached, balancing a tray with calm precision. Leonard ordered a top-shelf scotch and cracked a joke loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Polite, composed, Deborah took their orders, masking the unease she felt under his gaze. "Deborah," Leonard said, eyes glinting as he read her name tag. "Sounds like someone with hidden talents." Caught off guard, she nodded politely and stepped away, but Leonard's smirk deepened. His eyes followed her every move, his mind already plotting the spectacle to come. He thrived on humiliation, on watching people crumble under the weight of his presence. And tonight, he had chosen his target. Deborah continued her work, careful, to avoid his stare, yet a subtle tension coiled in her chest. She had faced difficult patrons before, but Leonard's presence carried something different. Calculated arrogance, an invisible challenge that seemed to whisper, "Prove yourself," or falter. By the time the appetizers were served, Leonard's performance had begun, not at the piano, but at his own table. He regaled his companions with tales of wealth and power, peppering his words with barbed jabs at those he deemed unambitious. Laughter followed him, obedient and hollow, while other diners shot annoyed glances. When Deborah returned with a bottle of wine, Leonard cut through the room's chatter. "Tell me, Deborah," he said, voice sharp, commanding. "What do you do when you're not carrying plates? Surely a young woman like you has dreams." Her heart skipped. Words caught in her throat. She answered softly, I play piano." "Sometimes." Leonard's eyes lit up, a smirk curling across his lips. "A pianist, huh? Fascinating. Why don't you give us a little performance?" Deborah froze. The air seemed to thicken, as though the room itself waited for her reply. "Oh, I couldn't," she said nervously, forcing a laugh. "I'm just here to work tonight." "Nonsense," Leonard declared, voice booming. "There's a piano right there in the corner. Show us what you've got." "Surely a future star like you isn't afraid of a little audience." His companions chuckled, relishing the show. Other diners turned, curiosity piqued. Heat rose to Deborah's face. She wanted to walk away, to say no, yet something inside whispered she could not. Leonard's challenge lingered, daring her to rise or crumble. She glanced around for support. Even her colleagues hesitated. Leonard leaned back, sipping his scotch, smirk widening. "Ah, all talk, no talent. That's disappointing." The words struck deep. She wasn't confrontational, wasn't seeking attention. Yet, to be dismissed as a joke, as a nobody, cut deeper than she expected. A familiar voice echoed in her mind. "Never let anyone make you small, Deborah. You're bigger than they'll ever know." The room fell into a tense silence, all eyes now on her. A choice hung in the balance, a choice that would define the night. Deborah's eyes flicked to the grand. Piano in the corner, then back to Leonard. His smug expression dared her to rise to the challenge. Against her better judgment, she did. I'll play," she said, her voice low, steady, carrying a quiet defiance. The room seemed to hold its breath. Each step she took toward the piano felt like a heartbeat echoing through the silence, a fragile bridge between fear and courage. The chandeliers above cast a soft, golden glow over the polished keys, isolating her from the murmuring crowd, spotlighting her in a way that made every diner feel like a witness to something extraordinary. Her fingers trembled as she slid onto the bench, the cool keys beneath her fingertips daring her to prove herself. Behind her, Leonard leaned back, the picture of arrogance, confident he had orchestrated the evening's spectacle. But Deborah didn't flinch. Not now. Closing her eyes, she drew a deep breath. Her heart pounded like a drum, threatening to betray her, yet the music inside her demanded release. This wasn't the familiar sanctuary of church recitals or cozy community gatherings. It was a battlefield. But she would not retreat. The first notes were tentative, almost fragile, like a whispered secret. A few diners shifted, some coughed nervously, but Deborah let the room melt away. She chose a piece she knew by heart, a soulful rendition of Clair de Lune, each note carrying the weight of her journey. The melody spilled into the room, weaving through the air like a delicate yet unyielding thread. Her confidence grew with every chord, her fingers dancing across the keys with grace that belied the chaos inside her. Every note was a story, the sacrifices her mother had made, The nights spent practicing in cramped rooms. The dreams deferred but never abandoned. One by one, the diners fell silent. Laughter, chatter, and clinking silverware vanished, replaced by a collective stillness that wrapped the room like a velvet cloak. Even Leonard, who had whispered and smirked at his companions just moments ago, went quiet. Deborah didn't need to look at him. She could feel the shift in energy. Mockery had been replaced by something unfamiliar. Awe, perhaps humility. The music swelled. Deborah let herself go completely for the first time in years. She wasn't a waitress, nor a struggling dreamer. She was herself, an artist claiming her space. The notes poured out like smoke, filling the room with raw, vivid emotion. When she struck the final chord, silence descended once more. The lingering resonance hung in the air, vibrating in the hearts of everyone present. Deborah sat frozen, hand still resting on the keys, unsure of what would follow. Then, like a dam breaking, applause erupted. Thunderous, heartfelt, impossible to ignore. Diners rose to their feet, clapping with a fervor that brought tears to her eyes. Her colleagues joined in, faces alight with pride. Leonard remained seated. The smug smirk that had dominated the evening was gone, replaced by an expression she couldn't quite read, a mixture of shock, discomfort, and reluctant acknowledgement. Slowly, he raised his hands in applause, hollow compared to the warmth surrounding her. Even his grudging recognition couldn't overshadow what she had accomplished. Deborah had reclaimed her voice. No arrogance, no condescension could take that away. As the applause faded, the room seemed to exhale. Deborah stood, knees trembling, back straight. She finally looked at her audience not as strangers, but as witnesses. Their eyes held admiration, respect, even awe. She gave a small, polite nod to the diners who had cheered most loudly, a faint smile curving her lips. Pride was not what she felt. It was relief. Relief that fear had not silenced her. Her gaze inevitably drifted to Leonard. He was still seated, hands clasped, his earlier confidence stripped away. "Well?" he finally said, voice louder than necessary, breaking the delicate silence. That was unexpected. A laugh escaped him, light and hollow, lacking its usual bravado. "I suppose talent does come from the most surprising places." The comment landed like a dull thud. His companions exchanged awkward glances, unsure whether to laugh or stay silent. Deborah tilted her head, studying him. His words were meant as an olive branch, but they were hollow, weighed down by his inability to truly own the moment. "Thank you," she said, tone steady, deliberate. No warmth, no hostility, just quiet strength. She would not allow him to drag her back into the smallness he had tried to impose. Her music had spoken louder than any words could. Leonard cleared his throat, attempting to regain composure, gesturing for another drink, his usual air of dominance slipping further. "You've got quite a gift," he muttered begrudgingly. Deborah's gaze never wavered. "Everyone has a gift," she said, deliberate. "It's how you choose to use it that matters." The room seemed to hold its breath again. Her words rippled through the air, not loud, not aggressive, but piercing enough to leave a mark. Leonard shifted uncomfortably, dominance eroding with every passing second. The hum of pretense in the room had been replaced by something richer, a shared recognition of authenticity, courage, and the undeniable power of one person standing tall. Leonard, for all his wealth and arrogance, had been exposed. No charm could shield him from the truth. Deborah stepped away from the piano, the weight of the moment settling in her chest. Her colleagues offered quiet smiles, subtle nods of encouragement. As she returned to her station, something in her posture had changed. Her head was held higher, her movements deliberate. Leonard's table remained subdued. The energy had shifted, and the night had been quietly rewritten by the music of one courageous soul. The once boisterous corner of the restaurant had fallen into an awkward silence. Leonard's bravado had evaporated, leaving only a subtle tension in its wake. The night continued, but Deborah moved differently now. Each step she took felt purposeful, deliberate. Confidence radiated from her in a way she hadn't realized. She possessed. As she refilled glasses and cleared plates, patrons began to notice. "You're incredible," an older woman whispered, placing a coffee cup before her. "I don't think I've ever heard anything so moving." "Keep going," a man added, eyes bright with genuine admiration. "You've got something special. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Deborah nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. These weren't idle compliments. They were validations. Every late night, every sacrificed dream, every note played in secret had led to this. Leonard, however, remained a different story. When Deborah approached his table to deliver the check, he looked up, a flicker of reluctant acknowledgement crossing his otherwise stern face. "You've made your point," he said, clipped, almost dismissive. "No need to rub it in." Deborah met his gaze directly, calm and firm. "It was never about proving anything to you," she replied. "I just wanted to play." Leonard had no response. He fidgeted with his glass, the confident air he once radiated slipping away like sand through his fingers. The power dynamic had shifted entirely, and everyone at the table could feel it. As Leonard scrawled his signature on the check, one of his companions, younger and softer in demeanor, looked up at her with genuine admiration. "You were amazing. Truly," he said. Deborah caught a flicker of humanity in his words, a momentary glimpse of sincerity from someone she had expected to be shallow. "Thank you," she replied softly, offering a small smile, before walking away. The night drew to a close. Leonard and his entourage left quietly, their usual grand exit replaced by a subdued, almost hasty retreat. Deborah watched them go. She felt no triumph, no bitterness. Her mind wasn't on him. It was already on what came next. Tips that evening were unusually generous, enough to cover her rent and even a little extra for the piano lessons she had postponed for months. Walking home through the crisp night air, Deborah felt something she hadn't in years. Certainty. She wasn't just a waitress. She wasn't just a dreamer. She was an artist. And nothing, not mocking words, not financial struggles, not fear, could take that away. At her small apartment, she sat on the worn bench before her upright piano. The sound wasn't as crisp as the grand at La Fontaine, but that didn't matter. Music came from her heart, as it always had. That night had shifted something deep inside her. It wasn't merely a moment of triumph. It was a revelation. Her. Talent was hers, unhidden, unapologetic, and enough. In the days that followed, the story of her performance spread. Patrons spoke in hushed tones, recounting the night the waitress had silenced the arrogant millionaire with nothing but her music. And then, a call from Nashville arrived. A music producer who had been dining that evening. He wasn't promising fame or fortune, but he offered something even more precious. A chance to record a demo, a step closer to the dreams Deborah had long tucked away. She agreed, not for immediate glory, but because the door had opened, and she was ready to walk through it. For years, fear and doubt had whispered lies. "You're not enough. Your dreams are too big." But now she saw the truth. Resilience and authenticity were her greatest strengths. Leonard Grayson had been more than a man in a restaurant. He was every voice of doubt, every sneer of judgment she had ever faced, and she had silenced him with the purity of her craft. Deborah's story carried a message. Never let someone else define your worth. The world is full of Leonards, people who project their insecurities onto others to feel powerful. But true, power comes from staying rooted in who you are, letting your passions speak louder than their ridicule. Closing the piano lid, hands resting on the worn wood, Deborah smiled. Her journey was far from over, but for the first time, it felt as though it had truly begun. What about you? What dream have you been holding back, silenced by fear or doubt? Don't wait for someone like Leonard to test you. Step forward. Take your leap. If Deborah's story inspired you, hit like, subscribe, and join us for more tales of resilience, courage, and triumph. Your story could be next.